What's up guys, Meredith with ExtremeTerrain.com, and today we are checking out the Barricade HD tire carrier with the mount fitting all 2021 and newer Ford Broncos. Now this will be a great addition to your Bronco if you're either looking to or already have upgraded your wheels and tires. You want to keep the factory tailgate mounted style, and you want to ensure that your tailgate is going to be able to handle all that extra load on the back over time while not breaking the bank. Not only will it help maintain usability of your tailgate if you want to preserve your Bronco's components, but it's also going to help with fitment, considering that larger tires and non-factory wheels can give you issues on your factory carrier, but this one will not. Now, when upgrading to an oversized spare, most of the time on the factory system, either the tire is too wide or too tall, and either just won't sit flat up against the mounting face of the carrier, or it just bumps into the rear bumper, causing a whole bunch of fitment issues. Now, this carrier and the mount will allow you to adjust the mounting positions both up and down and in and out thanks to the design, so you can fine-tune your tire fitment so it's not interfering with other components or even out too far, which can cause other issues. Now, oversized tires are also significantly heavier most of the time, and this is going to give your hinges the support they need to prevent any sagging or excessive wear over time, even with lots of use. This will also include all of the hardware to maintain your factory features, including a bracket and a cover for the factory reverse camera and an adjustable third brake light mount to make sure it's visible to keep your Bronco up to standard. You're also going to get some additional wires in the kit to make sure that your components are compatible with this system. Now this is made of a steel plating construction, so this will have a good amount of strength to be able to hold your oversized spare even if you're bouncing around off-road. It's completely covered in a wrinkle black powder coat with an epoxy pre-coating to prevent any rusting on the steel, and of course to match with other HD accessories that are already on your build. This kit will also come with all of the hardware needed for the install, including new hardware for the cameras and lug nuts for the new lug studs, and won't require any modification or drilling in order to install it. Now this is about $450, putting this at a great price point. Compared to others available in the category, this is going to be one of the more affordable options. Now this will offer you both the adjustment that you need to allow you to fine tune and grow with your setup over time, in addition to the extra strength, unlike some choices that may be a bit more affordable, breaking it up. So they may provide you with one or the other, either the tailgate reinforcement or the mount itself. Now on the other hand, there are some on the page that do have a higher price point. They may have a bumper mounted construction or design that is going to increase that price point, but if you're looking for a solid middle ground of performance and features to keep to the affordable side while getting the strength and the adjustment, this is going to be a great choice for you. Install is a 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, and it'll probably take you about 2 hours or so to get the job done. At this point though, we can head over to our shop and check out a detailed breakdown on how you can get this onto your Bronco at home. So that is going to wrap it up for my review. Let's go ahead and jump into the install.
Tools required for this install include an impact gun, a ratchet, a pair of scissors, a clip remover tool, Phillips and flathead screwdrivers, 17mm wrench, an extension, a Phillips socket, T30 and T45 torque sockets, the included Allen wrench, 10, 13, 16, and 18mm sockets, and a magnet. What's up guys? Today we're installing a spare tire carrier on our Bronco, so let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is remove our spare tire. We have 3 lug nuts that we have to pop off. We have aftermarket lug nuts on ours, so I'm using a 21mm socket with a spline key, but yours is going to be a little different. And now with those removed, we can pull back and remove our spare tire. Next, we can pop off these plastic trim pieces on our tailgate with a plastic pry tool. Next, we can disconnect these 2 connectors and pop the clips on our grommet to push it through. So I'm just pressing in on the black tab at the bottom here, and wiggling that out, and then the brown tab for this top one. And then with this, we can press in on these white tabs to pop that through. Next, we can take a 13mm socket and remove the 8 bolts. We've got 2 in each corner that hold on our tire carrier. Next, we're gonna pop our shock off of the tailgate here. I've got a flathead screwdriver. We're gonna pry this tab in the middle down, and then we can pop it off. Next, we're gonna take a plastic pry tool to pop out our 2 vents on our tailgate. Next, we're gonna have to remove all the clips holding this wire harness in, and then we can just lay it in the trunk area. Now on our 2 connectors that we disconnected, we have a couple push clips. So we'll get a clip remover tool to pop these out. And then you can just follow that along the back here and pop all these clips out. And then we can fish this out of the door. Now I misspoke before, we actually have 2 more connectors here and 1 more clip. This top one's gonna be pretty tough to see. But just like all the other ones, we're gonna press in on the tab, that gray tab, and pop it off. Now this one's a black tab here that we can pop off, and then we just have this one last clip. And now we can fish this harness out of our door. And now we can fish this out of the door and just lay it nicely in the trunk. Next, we need to remove this little filler panel in between our door and the body here. We have 2 10mm bolts and 4 push clips. So I've got a 10mm socket to get these bolts out first. And then I'll grab a clip remover tool for our 4 clips. Now with everything removed, we can slide this out of place. Now next, we're going to take a Phillips head screwdriver to remove these 2 little bumpers. There's a Phillips head screw right through this hole that we're going to remove, and then we can pop these out. Now once you have that screw backed out of the clip, you should be able just to pull this out. And then do that same thing for the other one. Now next, we're going to take a T45 Torx bit and remove these 4 bolts holding hinges to the door, and then we can remove the door. So I've got a buddy on the other side holding it just so it doesn't drop. Once I have 1 bolt left here, I'm going to grab the bottom of this. And then we can remove our tailgate. Next, we can remove our hinges. First, we're gonna take some tape. I'm gonna put a line at the top, bottom, and on the inside here, so that it makes it a little bit easier to line up our new tire carrier. So I've got a few strips. I'm just gonna lay that down nice and straight on the back edge. And then with the top edge. And with the bottom edge. And then we'll take a 13mm socket, remove our 2 bolts, and do the same thing for the lower hinge. So now we can start assembling our new tire carrier. First thing we're going to do is install these 4 adhesive pads on the back here to protect the paint on the tailgate. So now we're going to be putting a pad up top, at the sides, and at the bottom. Now the bottom one, I'm going to take a pair of scissors to cut a little bit shorter to fit in between our 2 bolt holes. So I'm going to start with that one. So now I've got our spare tire carrier laid onto our tailgate here. We have those foam pads on to protect the paint. In the 8 holes around where the tire is going to actually go, we're going to be reinstalling our factory bolts that we pulled out from the factory spare tire carrier. Now over here where our hinges would have bolted up, instead of reusing those Torx bolts, we have these combo bolts that we're going to be using in this place. So now I'm just going to get all of the bolts started here. That way we can make sure everything lines up before we start tightening it down. We're going to have to go down a little to line these up. Now the other side is a direct mirror of that side. And then once we have those threaded in, we can start working on our tailgate hinges. Now on the hinge side, these holes are pretty deep in there, so I'm going to get a magnet on the bolt to get these started. Now I'm just going to get a 13mm socket on an extension in there now, just to make sure that these are all threading smoothly before we hammer them down. Now once you got everything nice and centered up, you can take that 13mm socket and start tightening everything down. Next we can install our 2 bumper brackets. Now we're going to be using our short M8 bolts with a lock washer and flat washer and threading into these holes. And then these do slide back and forth depending on the size tire you have. I'm just going to make this a little bit back for our purposes. And then we can take a 13mm socket to tighten down our bolts. And then do that exact same thing on the other side. And then once you have the other side complete, you can install this rubber plug into where our factory bumpers were. So now we're ready to throw our tailgate back onto the Bronco. I've got myself a buddy here to support the weight of the back of the tailgate while I get our factory bolts started back into the threads. This is a lot heavier now than when we took it off, so it's good to have that extra set of hands for some support. So now we can line up our hinges with the tape marks and tighten these down with a 13mm socket. Now once you have your tailgate bolted down, you can remove the tape that you put on. Now for my purposes, this is going to be going back to stock, so I'm going to leave the tape on there for now, but you can take yours off. You'll know your door is properly adjusted if you can close it smoothly. Just like that. Next we can install our bracket that's going to mount our studs. Now, depending on what tire size you have, you're going to use a different hole and a different adjustment. You're just going to have to kind of measure and find what works out for you. For us, we have a 33-inch tire, so I'm going to be using these top 2 and the 3rd row, just like that, and I'm going to have it pretty centered up there. Now, if you have bigger tires, you can slide this up higher to get it further away from your bumper down here. Now I'm going to start threading in those M10 bolts with flat washer. And then I'm going to center up those slots and then take an 18mm socket to tighten these down. Next we can install our plate with the studs right on top of the one that we just installed. And now we have these M8 bolts that we're going to be dropping through the top and the sides. Now on the bottom of that bolt and flat washer, we're going to get another flat washer and a nut. And then we'll do that same thing through the sides here. Now this piece is also adjustable. You can go out and in with it. Now depending on the offset of your wheel, you're gonna have it either in or out. I'm gonna get it pretty centered with maybe a little bit more towards the front for our purposes. And then I'm gonna grab a 16mm socket and a 17mm wrench and tighten all of these down. Next, we can install our third brake light bracket. Now we're using M8 bolts with a flat washer to go down into those holes. And then we'll take a 13mm socket and tighten this down. Next, we can grab our factory tire carrier. We have 2 Torx bolts right by our camera and studs, as well as these 4 down here. We're gonna take a T30 Torx socket to remove all of those. And I've got those 2 by our camera. And now with those removed, our stud plate's gonna fall out. The third brake light will fall out. And then we can flip this over. We have this push clip that we can remove. And now we can pop our camera out. So we're just gonna lift up on this plate in here. And pop that out. And then we have a couple clips that we just need to pop off of this plastic here. And then we can remove this. And now we're gonna disconnect the connector on our camera. We're gonna press in on that brown tab and just pop that off. And then we can unthread it out of this bracket and remove that. Now next we can install the bracket for our third brake light. Now this is going to install differently depending on whether you have a soft or a hard top. If you have the soft top, you're going to install it like this. If you have the hard top like we do, this wiper blade is going to get in the way. So we're going to flip it around like this to get us the clearance that we need. Then we're going to take our M8 bolt with a flat washer. We're going to thread it through this bracket and into this hole. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And I'm going to put our bracket straight and I'm going to pull it as far towards where the tire is going to be sitting as possible. And then I'll take a 13mm socket and tighten them down. Now next we can grab our third brake light and place it behind our bracket, and we're going to thread those factory screws back into the holes. Now on our bottom two holes, we're going to be using the Phillips head screw and a flat washer that's included in the kit. And now we can take a T30 torque socket to tighten down the top 4 bolts. And I'm going to switch to a Phillips bit for our 2 screws. Now next we can install our backup camera. We have a spacer that's going to go onto these studs first. And then we're going to have to get an extension harness for our camera that we're going to plug into the back of this. And then we have a couple different camera covers to choose from depending on if you have the Sasquatch package or not. So now I'm going to take our extension harness, we're going to put it in through the hole in the back and then slide it on to our camera connector. And then we're going to put this through the center hole and up through the top hole here before sliding it onto our studs. And then we have our 2 different camera covers. The longer one's going to be for the Sasquatch, so I'm going to take the shorter one and slide that into place. And then we can take these 2 Allen head bolts, sandwich everything up, and thread those in through the 2 smaller holes. And then we can take the included Allen wrench and tighten these down. Next we can grab the connector for our rear view camera. I'm going to run this behind the plate and down through this hole and connect. And now with that done, we can take our 2 connectors and our grommet and slide that back through the hole and then press in on our grommet to click it into place. And then I'm going to take this hook and I'm going to clip it onto here to run it a little more neatly. Now we can feed our wire harness from the back all the way through our door, put our clips back, and then reinstall our filler panel here. And now we can grab our connectors, put all these clips back into their slots, and then reinstall our 2 connectors over here and the 2 connectors into here. And then we'll take our 2 connectors that are going through that grommet and connect them up. And then we have our 1 push clip that's going to go on the white plastic on the side here, as well as our connector that's going to the latch. And then we have our last connector that's going right up at the top here. It's going to be impossible to see on camera. And then with all that in place, we can grab our cover. We have our 2 clips on the side that are going to slot in first, and then we can press the rest into place. Next we can reattach our shock. Now with this tire carrier, our door doesn't open as far as it used to, so we're gonna have to pull in to compress this a little bit so that we can line it up and press it on. And now we can throw our tire back on. Now, if this isn't lining up well and you don't have enough room front to back, that's when you're gonna go ahead and adjust this to get it to fit. And then we can throw our lug nuts back on. And then we can tighten those down. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the Barricade HD tire carrier with mount for your 2021 and newer Bronco. Thank you for watching, and for all things Bronco, keep it right here at extremeterrain.com.